and welcome to the 1%ers Performance Podcast, coming to you from Combermary and Gadigal country in Australia. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and we acknowledge the First Nations people of these lands. This is the podcast exploring how small changes make a big impact. I'm Mario Buchs, and together with my co-host Tim Buxton, we'll discover the unseen edges of peak performance to help athletes, teams and leaders unlock their exponential growth. And now, it's time to dive in and find the 1% that changes everything. Hello, Tim. We're back.
Mario.
I know everybody's now thinking, what the hell? There's 3 people here. Yeah, so let's get right to it. So today, the very first time on the 1%ers Performance Podcast, we actually have a guest, but Sophie Geraghty is not just a guest. She's also going to ask us a few questions. So before I give the word to Sophie, where she can personally introduce herself, just a few snippets. I took Sophie on board as one of my coached athletes a few months ago. She approached me and I was more than happy to help her. She's done some tough stuff like we all do ultra marathoners. She's a very busy lady. She's a photographer, a mom of 2 very exciting boys, a wife, of course, leads a busy life. But I think I'll give the microphone to you, Sophie, and you can do an intro and let the world know who you are and why you're on this podcast.
Yikes. Okay. Thank you for having me, guys. It's really exciting. I am a listener, so I have been kind of following along with your journey of this podcast, which is something that, I listen and plug into when I'm on my long runs, and it's definitely taken on a different kind of meaning for me now that you're my coach as well, Mario. So, I get to actually run with my coach in my ear. So on some of the hills where I'm like, oh, I should be running this. Oh, he's there. He's right there. Okay, fine.
Oh, that's
we'll run. It is a bit. Talk about accountability. So yeah, for those that don't know who I am, my name's Sophie. I am a photographer. I also do a little bit of coaching on the side for a few women in my life, which is amazing and I love it. I've been running I did my first road marathon almost 9 years ago. And then that was always to kind of get into more the trail stuff. I'd use that as a, qualify for 6 foot, and it just kind of rolled from there, and just seemed to have the biggest case of FOMO and YOLO and all the other acronyms. And one thing starts with a marathon, and then it's a 50K, then it's 100, then it's a miler, then it's Coast to Cosy last year. So just excited to be here for the journey and find out more about your race at Elephant.
Thank you. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I think it's a different way of doing a review. I mean, many people write it down, their experiences at a race. I do that as well, but I think this one is a little bit different. I'm not saying better or worse, but it's the way we roll. And it's great to share my experience at the last 100-mile event that I was lucky enough to participate in up at Port Macquarie. It's called the Elephant Trail Race. There's several events. There's a 217, which is for the absolute crackers. It's very tough. There's a time cutoff. So they start at 5:30 on Friday evening, and they've got until 2 p.m. on Sunday to finish 8 loops. And they're not easy loops. They're gnarly. So, yeah. But, yeah, so I think it's a different way of sharing an experience of a race rather than just writing it down and sending it through the stratosphere. So I'm very blessed to be able to answer some questions about it, and then obviously share it with the race directors as well, because it's a family-run event. I wouldn't say a small event, but it's a boutique event. Let's call it this. It's fantastic. Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful event in the forest.
You make it sound like it's just like a holiday destination.
It is.
I mean, I'm sure it is beautiful. It is a brutal boutique event.
Yes,
I think that's a clarifying point. And I have to say, Sophie, one thing that strikes me just from the get-go is for those people that are out there and don't have a running coach but are interested, you're also a coach yourself. And it's interesting that it's people that are coaches actually realize the importance of having coaches for themselves. That this journey of going on quests and adventures and learning and testing the limits of our own human experience in our body, mind, we realize we need people ahead of us on the journey in all aspects of our life. So I found that fascinating, and I find it
Absolutely.
more and more as I meet with people that the best coaches out there always have other coaches helping them in other
Absolutely.
ways.
And I think that what you said about it being in life as well is so relevant. And, I've had periods of my running career. That sounds ridiculous because it's not a career, but my running journey where I haven't had coaches and have and haven't and have again. And one of the biggest things that I felt as a runner is, firstly and most obviously, I guess, it's that accountability, right? Like, it doesn't matter how motivated you are as an individual, how many races you've got, having that level of accountability to, when you want to really look at, and what obviously this podcast is about, that 1%. It's how can you honestly take yourself from where you are to where you want to be, and are you being genuinely honest with yourself with the training that you're doing to be able to go, hey, do you know what, like, yeah, I'm just going to go for another easy run, like an easy 14k, and I'll do a few hills and whatever else. Or what can you add into that, and what are the barriers that you can break down to allow yourself to go, actually, do you know what, like, I want this next event to be the best possible version of myself. And I think that's what a coach can really allow you to do, to untap in you. And you've got to be really vulnerable, and you've got to be willing to fail, because you will, because that's what life is. Life is never perfect. And I experienced that recently. And it was actually a really amazing opportunity to be really raw and have some really cool conversations with myself and with Mario. And I think what's really important in life in general is that you have those mentors in your life, that you have people that are that next step beyond you, where you feel like you can ask the stupid questions, or the ones where you feel like this is the thing that takes me to that next point in my career or my relationship with my partner or my kids or whatever. So yeah, long answer short, everyone should have a coach in every aspect of their life,
Yes.
whether it's a formal one or not.
No, I love that. And hopefully we get to dig into what you just were sharing about some of the vulnerabilities and challenges and when we get time to do that. But Sophie, since you're hijacking our podcast today, what is top of your mind? Because I'm so keen to dig into Mario's incredible feat. And side note, he's just been accepted into Coast to Cozzy again. So
Has he?
sorry to steal your thunder on that. I don't know if that's allowed to. If you're allowing
Yeah,
me
it's
to.
not official, but the podcast won't go out
Yeah. Oh, that's
early
awesome.
enough. So yeah.
How
We can
brilliant
cut
is that?
it out if we need to. Oh,
No,
I'm
it's
stoked
okay.
for it.
They'll make it official over the next few days anyway.
Yeah.
So this podcast won't come out. No, that's fine. I'm
That's
happy to share
super
that. Yeah.
exciting.
Thanks, Tim.
Super
Let's
exciting.
get
All
into
right,
the mind of
Mario
Mario,
books.
Coach Mario.
All right, so I wanted to start off because obviously, as you said, Elephant is a very boutique. You're the only person I know that can make trail running sound bougie.
That's so true.
But obviously, it's a very small event. It's family run. Marketing and advertising is not, the biggest portion of their expenditure, I'm sure. So I think a really important part will be, give us an overview of what the race is. Obviously, there's a variety of distances and it's a lap course. So talk us through what one of those laps looks like in terms of technicality, elevation, and what are the hurdles within one of those loops.
So basically, there's two types of laps. There's a 25-kilometer lap and a 27-kilometer lap. So the shorter races and the staged races. So there's a staged 100, a staged 75. There's a 25k race and a 50k race. They run the 25k loop to make up that number. The 100k, which is 108. The 100 miler and the 217 have to run the 27-kilometer loop. So why is there a 25 and a 27? So the 27 has something called Death Valley, which is just a scrambly,
Sounds awesome.
800-meter downhill on loose rock, but downhill, and then you come back up.
Out and back?
Yeah, and at the bottom is a timing mat. So there's none of this. There is no other way than actually having to go down. So you do that 4 times in the 100k, 6 times in the 100 miler, and 8 times in the 217. So the The way they loop it, so for the K is simple, 2 ways, anti-clockwise, 2 times clockwise. For me, it was 2 times anti, 2 times clockwise, 2 times anti, and then obviously the 217 go clockwise again. So I did 4 times the same loop with 2 different loops in between. So one loop is like, the start and finish line is on a fire trail, so it looks kind of it looks nice and easy there because you can see the runners coming in for a few hundred meters, depending on what loop they're doing, and then you hit the trail. But the further you get away from that start and finish line, the gnarlier it gets. Then there's a riverbed which is 1.7 kilometers long, and coming out of that,
through.
Yes, you're running through. There's no water, so it's just loose rock.
Dry.
Well, some run it. I mean, obviously, the faster people will run it. The 25K guys will run it. The winner of the 50K will run it. And people who are up there in the 100K will also run some of it. So I obviously didn't, for obvious reasons. I'm 0.1 too old to run through that stuff. And the last thing I need is a twisted ankle on lap 1. So and then it just gets into a few bits and pieces. I can't remember off the top of my head what they call certain sections, but it's just one of those things where you break it up, right? You say, okay, I've got a bit of fire trail, loosen the legs, then I'm going to hit some fire trail which is runnable, but making sure on the uphills we look after one another, Then there's 2 aid stations out there as well. None of them have a timing mat. So there's only 2 timing mats on the course, the bottom of Death Valley and start and finish. And then you have to run through a blow-up elephant, which is huge. And that's actually your start and finish. So the marker, the timing mat is under there, yeah. So, there's something called the rock face, which is very slippery. Then there's some limestone. Then there's a 2.5 kilometer incline, which is like really gnarly. I mean, if you know... This is a good. If you know landslide in the Blue Mountains, Sophie, which you do. So imagine landslide, which is horizontal. So that incline is landslide, but vertical.
Yeah, it sounds a bit like Larapinta.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
You're scrambling up, rocks that are the size of cars.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
And everything's loose. That's the problem, right? You've never got the footing. And you start at night, which is great. So the challenge is not just the loop system. You start in the evening, Friday evening. So you're going straight into a night. Yep. So you hope to kind of come back in. It's a little bit daylight. And then you want to do as many loops in daytime on the Saturday, which I managed to do just. I came back from loop 4. It was dark, but and then you've only got 2 loops left. So, yeah. So that's about the loop. Look, there's certain names and stuff, but yeah. But there's an event. So these are the Friday events. There's also the 100K stage, which starts. And then on Saturday, there's a 50K, the 50K for the 100K staged race, the 50K on its own, the 50K for the 75K staged race. Then Sunday morning, there's a 5K, 2.5K, 13K, and the 25K for everybody finishing off their stage races or running the 25 on their own. Plus, we're still running and finishing.
So there's a lot going on.
Yeah, it's great. Sunday morning is great. Yeah. Saturday morning and Sunday morning is a lot of fun.
Yeah. And so going into something like you saying you start on the Friday night, so starting when it's dark, which, is unusual. Normally we're the early birds. Was that something that you was kind of playing on your mind or something you had to prepare for specifically going into a race like this? Had you had that kind of experience before? Because you were going through 2 nights, which is unusual.
I've never run through 2 nights, so that's definitely something that was playing on my mind. The first night I knew was easy because, I've done that many times. Every long event goes into the night or through the night, be it milers or coast to Cozy or anything similar. Then, I had a strategy. So obviously I needed to somehow come up with a caffeine strategy. So what do? I needed a rest strategy, which I did. So there, my coach, Gary Mullins, came in and he said, look, how about you sit down for 15 minutes after lap 1? Just put something in the bank, which I did. I put my feet up. I dozed off maybe for a few minutes, which is great. Luckily, I try and nap as often as I can when I get time, definitely on the weekend. Sometimes during the week when I have a meeting at night, I kind of have a bit of a break. So that was my strategy, yeah. No caffeine in night 1. not even gels or anything. And then I came back after lap 2 and I had a double shot espresso. And there's a funny story to this. I had a running coffee shop. So people who were there, they could buy coffees. So I had a coffee machine there. And I remember that from last year. And so, yeah, I asked my crew guy, Rob, to get me a double shot espresso. So I took that after so I had 15 minutes after every loop. And I walked out with that double shot espresso, and that got me into the daytime. But then what I didn't know is they had some power issues and the coffee machine broke. And then the rumor has it that Mario Buchs deflated the blow-up elephant because he needed so many double shot espressos after every lap, so.
And are you taking any responsibility for that, or?
Never. I didn't see the elephant deflate. He was always
You just
fully
need to
blown up.
Look at his Instagram profile, Mini Presso. The guy
There you
is
go.
obsessed with coffee. So if there's any rumor around
it's true, correct.
Coffee mishaps,
yes.
There will need to be some. You need to destroy that evidence, mate.
Absolutely. I need to change my Instagram handle. Yeah.
Oh, we're not talking about Instagram at the moment because I'm in the Instagram jail. So
that's true. Yes,
the whole
that's
method
true.
jail.
That's true.
So I wouldn't know. So you had obviously a pretty good strategy and stuff going into it. What were the things that you were, I guess, not necessarily nervous about, but what are the things that have maybe not gone as well as you would like in a previous race, kind of, and knowing that you're going into something that was going to be potentially bigger and longer, not necessarily distance wise, but time wise? What were you focusing on in your training to try and ensure that kind of everything went as smoothly as possible?
So I think 3 things, definitely. Elevation has to be one. My training was filled with elevation. Wherever I could see a hill, instead of doing it once, do it twice. So Yaramandi became my friend and repeats on there and other areas where we live here in Sydney. The other thing was sleep deprivation. You can't practice, so I didn't even bother. I did a few evening runs, but nothing major. It was more mental, just to do a double run. Nutrition test on every run. I've never eaten so much on every single training run. So even when I was finished and I had 3 Ks to go and I looked in my pack, and if I had some food left, I just gobbled that up.
Yep.
Just to give that gut the training that it needed. So, and that worked. That worked really well. And then, just overall mental strategy. How do I approach something like this? So it was going to be UTMB. So the closest race to UTMB in Australia, with 2 nights, a late start, and nearly 10,000 meters of elevation. So this one had 9,100 meters of elevation. I was able to treat it a little bit like that. So just the mental aspect. I'm a strong believer. Every mile you run or every kilometer you run, you need to spend at least 1 minute on the mental strategy and the mental approach on this, and not let things get to you too much. Be in the moment. Every long run can be hard. I'm nobody who can say long runs are easy. You make them manageable, and you both know this. You've done some long runs now. Tim, you as well. You're going to have some longer runs coming up as well. And you did as well when you were leading up to marathon, and you've done your first marathon as well now, which is, a huge achievement. Working on the mental side of a race and preparing yourself. I'm a big visualization guy. My coach, Gary, he knows that as well. I'm huge with visualization. I've had great mentors, Kai Brett, who was only the second finisher of the 217 last year, who I crewed many times. He's a big visualization guy. He's a huge mentor of mine when it comes to the crunch and how do you overcome a little bit adversity through races. Everybody can get frustrated. And then the other number 4 is still in that bracket where you need to make sure that in a race like this, you do not get frustrated. If you're not used to a 25-minute kilometer, don't sign up for anything like this. If you can't handle a 30-minute kilometer pace for hours on end, don't sign up. There is no way in hell, people. If you can't fathom that, if you want to run 5-minute pace or 6-minute pace, then good luck. It's not the event. That, I have to be honest, that's something I would never. If any of my runners say, I'm used to running fast, I want to run the elephant, I says, maybe run something different, not the elephant.
And I think it's really interesting. All of those points, they actually all connect back to mindset. So, you have to be comfortable with running, not running, hiking, slogging at a 25, 30-minute pace. You have to be comfortable with, with the nutrition side of things. I think that it's a really interesting point, because I think we get so used to, and I certainly do, being, busy and just trying to fit the runs in when you can. And I'm just going to run out the door and, I've got an hour programmed, or I've got a 14K or whatever it is. And we just run out the door. Actually, those should be the runs, because I know I could do that on an empty stomach. But actually, part of the training comes back to making sure that, okay, I'm going to take something with me, and I'm going to make sure I have a gel or a half a banana as I'm walking to start, or something like that, and actually being okay with that, and actually understanding that that is part of the bigger picture training. And even with the sleep deprivation, having the comfort in your mind of, I can't train sleep deprivation. And and I think there's a lot of different opinions around whether you can train it or not. Personally, I don't know if you would agree, but I feel like sleep deprivation is something that you can improve on how well you perform with sleep deprivation, but when you're either the type of person that can go without sleep or not. And so some of those bigger races, you're going to find maybe those limits if you're the type of person that just doesn't do well on very little or no sleep. But still going into it I know I'm going to be awake for 2 nights with tiny micro sleeps and 15 minutes here or there, but that's still all up here. It's still all something that you have to get your head around, and find that strength to go, this is the goal, and I'm not going to stop. And something that you said to me actually before I did Cape to Cape, which stuck with me the whole time I was out there, was, this is your only job for the next 160 kilometers. This is your job, is to go and run it. It's not the kids, it's not the sport pick up and drop off and the work related items or whatever. This is your job. Your crew has their job and you've got yours. And that was a really awesome kind of mindset trigger for me when things were hard and I'd started vomiting and the cold just took over and whatever else. Was like, this is your only job. Was that something that you used as well when you were going around those laps?
Definitely. I'm not the same like many others. I can only speak for what I do in a race. So I don't go into a race with a mantra. I go into a race with about 20 to 25 whys. So there's a hell of a lot of reasons for me to finish. My mantra comes on as I work through this event. So I started using this. That's all I have to do today at UTA 100, because I had a bit of a tough race there. And I thought, okay, mate, just, this is all you have to do. Just finish this bloody thing, tick the box and carry on, So just going back, I just want to put my coaching hat on for 10 seconds. In terms of sleep deprivation, I can put it out there and say, okay, let's practice sleep deprivation. Let's have some runs, one run every 2 weeks where we go into the night and stuff like that. Okay, Great. 10 days out from race, you're stressed out and you don't sleep enough. I can tell you, all that sleep deprivation training, you can put in the bin. Doesn't do anything. There's only one thing to do, 10 days or 14 days out from race day, if it's a race that takes you through the night or even longer or into the second night, bank sleep. You can bank sleep. You cannot make up for it, of course, but you can bank sleep. And that's been something I've been doing for a lot of times of my events. So that's why I'm not bothered about training for it. And you're right, Sophie. Well, either you can sleep or either you have to sleep or you don't. I mean, of course, I got tired out there. I mean, loop 3 or 4, I wanted to go to sleep, but then the site is a little bit noisy, so you think maybe you should go out on the course, but then you forget about it and you just keep.
Can I jump in now? I think,
of course,
you've said something, like, I love what you brought up, Sophie, when you were just responding to Mario's, I guess, acceptance of not always having the perfect preparation or even the perfect race. That the mentality quite often is I love this about Mario. I'm a finisher. I'm not always the fastest, but I know how to get things done. I know how to finish things. I used to do a lot of Uber driving. And so last year I did 150 Ks in a week, but I did it with 2 hours of sleep each night. So it was a whole week of, I think I did, less than 14 hours of sleep in a whole week. and running 20 odd Ks a day. So it wasn't the longest amount of running, but for someone who'd never run more than a half marathon before, it was brutal. One of the things that did help me though was the fact that I had done a lot of Uber driving through the night for quite a long time, and so I knew some of the hacks that I knew how to give myself a 10-minute break that would help me go for the next 3 hours. And of course, it's like recharging a battery. The more you, over time, it recharges a lot less and less. But it helps you get. And I think of all these people doing these backyard ultras, and they just seem to just go forever and ever and ever and ever. Again, it's probably why I don't like it. But there's a lot of people that I think, they're in shift work. They understand what it's like to operate on little sleep. But to your point, Mario, I think it's all about, from my experience at least, and this is what you do in training, it's all about having the experience of going through it. Whether it took you 30 minutes to go to that 1 kilometer, you went through it. You didn't not go through that. And so the more you just experience the pain, or experience the frustrations, not in a perfect way, quite often imperfectly, that's what you rely on. That's what you'll go back to when you need to go to your toolbox, right, Mario? And you've just got to be like, well, where have I experienced this before? And suddenly I think the body, mind learns to recall those things because it's experienced it, not because, it's done the perfect training or prep.
Absolutely. And I think, sorry, you want to go, Mark?
No, it's okay. I just wanted to say, I also have to be honest, I was never on my own. So I teamed up with a young guy called Sam Polgar, who hopefully will listen to this podcast. He's an amazing bloke. He came second in the end, the bugger. But I held him back.
You probably facilitated that second place by holding him back.
I think, I mean, obviously he has to say that for himself, but I think we were smart. We were really smart for 4 laps. And then he got his pace and I got my pace. And then he was just stronger up the hill, which is fine. So, it's sometimes it works. You can team up with someone or you don't. Many people like to be out there. I don't mind either way. Of course, it's easier if you're together and you can chat about life, so.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I think kind of going back to that mindset side of things, Tim, and especially, that toolbox, that's what your long runs are for, right? Like, of course you need to be able to know how to turn your legs over for a marathon, or you need to, if you're going for pace, and you need to run at that pace, and all of all the biomechanics of it. Yes, absolutely. But one of the things I say to my athletes or to my friends, if they're training for stuff, if they've come back and go, oh my god, that was the worst, my guts went, I had no energy, and my brain was just all over the place and whatever else, that is a more valuable experience than the perfect 10Ks at 5-minute pace, perfectly executed. Because when you go and have those experiences of when stuff is hard and when stuff is tough, you learn to problem solve. You learn that tough stuff's going to happen. And hey, do you know what? I'm still standing here. I got it done. And then when that thing happens in the race or in the bigger picture in life, you go, hey, do you know what? I've done tough stuff before. I've done hard. This is just another one of those things. And I get the opportunity now to put all of that in practice, whether it's just a rough patch and I'm going to get through it, and I just need to be open to the fact that things are going to be good, and then they're not going to be good, and they're going to be good again, and then they're going to be okay. It's always going to change. And then if it's a problem that is more solvable, then you can go, okay, actually, when was the last time I ate something? When was the last time I drank something? Maybe it's a blister issue. Maybe I've got something in my shoe and I'm going to stop and I'm going to fix it. So I think all of that mindset and all of that why stuff, I love it so much. It's such a huge part of how I like to train as well.
And isn't that why it's so important to have a coach? Because you can then reflect back to your coach. I did this with Mario. Dude, I threw up at the end of my last run. And then the questions come, oh, let's talk through that. Instead of, you've got someone else's perspective that then helps you unpack that. Whereas if you don't have that coach, or if you don't have that person that keeps you accountable. And I always like to say, the good coaches don't keep you accountable, they keep you close. Because there's a big difference between someone that's like they're peering over your shoulder, you know, at work or wherever it is, or they've got their arm around your shoulder. And I think the best ones, that they're there to keep you close. They want to know, not because they're just trying to keep you in check, right? They're there because they really care. And that's, again, coming back to the power of just go through it, however imperfectly it is, because there's data to collect here. There's lots to learn about this new experience.
And being really mindful of it's not this thing that we have to attach to. You know, one of the things that I've loved about working with Mario is just that kind of, oh, you had a good run? Cool. Like the end, it's not, because it's going to change. And at the end of the day, especially for people like the three of us, and we are not the elites, although I will say that I was on the phone to my GP earlier and she did call me an elite athlete.
Yeah,
take it.
I was like, okay,
you're on the 1%ers podcast, right?
Yeah, hey, that's it. You're not one of those 99%.
Come on, you're in the 1%.
Totally. But in a more kind of serious way, like, this isn't our job. I mean, the coaching aspect of it, yes, absolutely, and there's so much passion there, but we get to, like, we choose to do this. This isn't our, we're not saving lives. We're not, doing these things that are, out there it's not paying our bills or anything like that. We get to do this. And I think for me, one of the most powerful things when it comes to signing up to these big, hard, stupid things is that it's my choice, and it's something I have my whys, and it is just this incredible privilege. And how lucky are we that we live in a part of the world? I know this taps into your ventures together, but we live in a part of the world where it is safe. I as a woman can go and run in the streets, and it is safe for me to do so. I have the financial freedom to be able to step out the front door and go for a run and sign up to these events and fly to WA or wherever to do these races. I have the physical body. It might not be as as fit or as fast or as lean or whatever, but I have a body that allows me to move through these landscapes in a way that there are some people out there that don't have all of those things. So how freaking lucky are we? Like, and if you can hold on to that in you when you're running, like, it is just, things can be horrible, and I'm vomiting, and it's dark, and it's cold, and it's sideways rain, and I still get to be there.
Point.
So well said.
I think that's fantastic.
TED talk over.
No, it's good, perfect. Because I think we can round it out here somehow. Because I started a podcast, so I get to round it. There's two ways of coaching, right? Just going back to that, and then we can kind of wind it down. There's coaching for development, and there's coaching for performance, right? Two completely different scenarios. Something you and I, Tim, will discuss in another podcast, but it's not just running related. It's because one is short term, one is long term, right? Mm-hmm. So I'll let the audience choose which one is which, because we'll be talking about it a lot more on the 1%ers Performance podcast.
I love it. I mean, there is so much for us to take from having you on, Sophie, someone who is like me, gets the privilege of being coached by Mario, but also hopefully we can delve in another episode, get you back to talk a bit about your adventures and talk a bit about your journey, because it's so important to understand, as someone who's a father of 4 kids, young kids, all in school, which reminds me, I've got to go get my kids from school. These are the things these all relate back to how do we apply this to life? And I think running is that powerful tool to do that. And there's moments in life we need to perform, and there's moments in life we just realize we're all just on a journey. We're growing, and there's the highs and the lows. And I'm grateful that I get to be surrounded by incredible people like you that are willing to do the hard things and to walk alongside us. So those out there that are used to listening to our podcast, please, I'm sure you're so grateful to have been able to hear from one of our listeners, but also someone who's in in the trenches as well, out in the running community. Sophie, thank you so much for coming on board.
Thank you very much, Sophie.
Thank you for having me.
One last thank you from me is to the Williams family who put up the elephant event, because I want to share the podcast with them. So Matt and Kerry, who run the show with their daughter Liliana, and all the volunteers. Unfortunately, I can't remember all the names of the volunteers, but they were all brilliant, and they looked after us. And these volunteers out on the course, there's one person through the night holding the fort, and sometimes they don't see runners for hours, so they just set up camp there in the middle of nowhere and wait for us moody runners to come along, and they put a friendly face on. And so a huge thank you. I love events that happen like that. I love a lot of events, and sometimes we need to single out the boutique ones.
Absolutely.
Bougie
Go
trail
team.
running.
The Bougie Boutique Brutal. Amazing events. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back again soon for another episode of the One Percenters podcast.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, being out.
Thanks for tuning in to the One Percenters podcast. That's a wrap for another episode. And we're proud to be recording from Australia on Kombumerri and Gadigal country. And we honour the traditions and knowledge of the First Nations people and pay our respects to elders, past and present. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. We want to hear from you, your questions or topics you would like us to cover, and you can easily do that in the Spotify app. And for those of you that are ready to discover your peak performance edge today, just head on over to our website. That is top.coach. That's TOPP.coach. And start unlocking your unlimited potential with us today. We would love to work with you. And that's it for now. Until next time, what are you waiting for?